Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Martin. I am a Sidebar member. And if you're wondering who Sidebar is or what Sidebar is, we are a private, highly vetted leadership community that is designed and built around creating meaningful connections and really growing our own professional careers and accelerating that growth through conversations, through the people that we meet, and also through the platform that we use. And some of our sidebar value is the speaker sessions. And so we've opened it up to the public. And specifically, I was fortunate enough to meet Katrina recently, where her content and the frameworks that she was using really spoke to me and resonated. And I just felt that it was something that we needed to share in the sidebar community and also the broader professional organizations as well. So I'm super excited to introduce you to Katrina. She's a renowned expert in career breaks and sabbaticals and an author of the best-selling book, Taking a Career Break for Dummies. Her expertise on career breaks specifically and travel has been featured in prestigious outlets such as Forbes, Fast Company, and NBC. With her wealth of knowledge and experience, she helps mid-career level professionals design transformative life breaks that lead to happiness, fulfillment, growth, and lasting change. She is a certified master coach with an MBA and authority in the field of professional pauses and sabbaticals. Her passion for empowering individuals to create happier, more fulfilling lives has led her to develop the break blueprint and a guiding framework that enables her clients to create life-changing experiences. So it sounds like, and it looks like many of you are at least interested, intrigued, and excited about listening to Katrina. So Katrina, please feel free to take it away.
Thank you so much, Kim. And just a caveat to everyone out there, I'm recovering from a sinus infection, so please excuse any coughing or water sipping. But I'm so excited for today. So with that said, my goal today is to expose you to a new way, potentially new way of thinking about breaks. I want to blow your mind a little bit and open you to new possibilities. What I'm going to share today is likely going to be counterintuitive, and it might go against some conventional wisdom that you have believed to be true. But I want you to know this isn't just theory. What I'm sharing with you today is based on over a decade of professional experience and observational data. And it shows that taking a break can be an incredibly smart and strategic move. And I want to help you know how to do that right. So before we dive in, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with terms. So when I talk about breaks, I want to make sure that you know what I'm talking about. So there are two main categories of breaks. They're the kind where you are returning to your current employer once the break is over. So these breaks can be paid, they may be unpaid. You will typically find these called a leave of absence. So there are many kinds of leaves of absence: mental health leave of absence, caregiving leave of absence, relocation leave of absence, as an example. And some companies provide a specific leave of absence called a sabbatical. And so when I'm talking about sabbaticals today, I'm talking about the kind where you are returning to your employer, but people do use this term to also basically there's no like rules around how you use it. So some people will use the term sabbatical when they're actually talking about a career break where they're leaving their employer and taking some intentional time off unemployed. The second category are the bigger, bolder breaks. Those are the ones where you are leaving your current employer and you are intentionally leaning into a period of unemployment. So you may hear the term a gap year or adult gap year. Those are oftentimes really travel focused breaks. Some people use the term mini retirement. I love the term career break, and that is the one I'm going to be using today. But a lot of the principles of what I'm teaching and sharing today apply to all of these kinds of breaks. It's really about taking a pause and taking time away. I do want to have a caveat though, and this is for anyone that may be laid off. You can absolutely still choose to take a career break if you've been laid off. So if you choose to lean into this time off and really invest in yourself and, fulfill some of your own specific needs, you can have the enriching experience that I'm going to talk more about today. The way I like to frame it is that you chose the break, you just didn't choose your start date. So it definitely still applies. Okay, so now that we're on the same page, I want to tell you a little bit about me, how I got here, and why I'm telling you about the amazing strategic advantages of taking a break through the lens of my own advantages that I've received from my 20-month career break. So 2010, I had ended my first career as a healthcare actuary, went back to get my MBA, and was starting my post MBA job. And I
Okay.
thought my life was going to be so amazing. It was all going to be fixed. But I quickly realized I was very burnt out, and I had really never
There will be
taken
no internet.
to address that or to manage that burnout. And I also was feeling really misaligned with my career and the way that I was showing up in my life. So I made a plan. I didn't have a lot of savings. I made a plan to save money and to take a break. This plan took me about 2 years to enact. So in 2011, I started the plan. I went on to save $40,000 in 18 months. I gave my job 8 months notice, and I was all set to take this fantastic, life-changing travel the world break. But the first huge benefit of my break actually happened a week before my break was supposed to start. And that is because my younger brother, Philip, very unexpectedly passed away after all that planning just 1 week before my break started. And he was my favorite human. And I truly, honestly credit my career break with saving my life. Because of that break, I had money, I had time, I had a plan, and I had the space to go on my own grief journey and to really find my spark again and pour back into myself. And I know for sure I would not have returned back to work after my 3 days of bereavement leave, ready to show up the way I needed to show up to maintain that job and to feel good about my life. So I take the break, I go on the break. It is still a really amazing, life-changing experience. I'm playing with elephants at an elephant sanctuary in Thailand. I'm doing a 3-month road trip through the US. I am living like a local for a month in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I have a really great experience. But one of the big advantages for me actually came at the end of my break, and it was really unexpected based on everything people around me were saying about taking a break. And that is that from the moment I updated my resume and put it out into the world to the moment I accepted a job, I had managed to land 5 job offers in just 5 weeks. One of those jobs was a career change. One of those jobs was a 30% raise with a promotion. And one of those jobs was a dream job, which is the one that I ended up accepting, that I had dreamed about like 4 years earlier and was technically underqualified for. But I was able to use my break as an asset, not a detractor, in those applications, those cover letters, in my interview. And because of that, it actually helped move me forward towards the jobs that I really wanted. So I go about paying off all of my MBA loans, becoming debt free, and realizing I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. I wanted to be a coach, helping people take breaks like I did. I credit my break fully with giving me the courage and the clarity to be able to pursue entrepreneurship, which was not on my radar before taking a break. That was not something I was ever going to consider. So in 2017, I became a certified life coach and went on to help a lot of people. And 6 years later, the Wiley, the For Dummies publisher, reached out to me unsolicited to ask me to write Taking a Career Break for Dummies, which was a huge opportunity and something beyond comprehension for me at that point. I had never set my target or eyesight on becoming an author, but I did it. And obviously we can see that that is a direct advantage and benefit of me having taken this break. And to date, now at the end of 2025, I have launched and co-founded an online community called Breakspace with another sabbatical coach named Lyndall. And we have supported over 100 members. And through my own private coaching and Breakspace, I have seen over 200 breaks up close. And so everything I'm sharing with you today is based on those 200 breaks, my own break, and things I've learned along the way. So that's my anecdote, but there's another person out there that you might know, or you might remember her story, and you might know a little bit better than me. And she is an amazing example of the power of a break. So we've got Simone Biles, right? She is forced to take a break for mental and physical health reasons and is forced to take a step back. And no one really knew, including Simone, if she was going to return to gymnastics, right? She's the GOAT. She's so amazing. But she needed this time off. She could not perform, and it was risking her health, mental and physical, to keep going. So she takes this sabbatical, not really knowing what to expect. And when she comes back, she goes on to the very next Olympics, right? She didn't even miss an Olympic. She comes back to the very next Olympics and she wins gold medals. But this time there was one remarkable difference, and that is that she did it joyfully on her own terms for the first time. She talks about this experience being in the Olympics and winning those medals as something that transcended the experiences in the past because it was really on her terms and feeling like she was really prioritizing her well-being and her joy in the midst of winning these medals. And I think it's important to highlight she was already the best at what she does. And she was able to take a break, and it wasn't taking a step back and knocking her off track. It was actually taking this pause so that she could move forward in a way that felt even better, right? She came back, she won more medals, and she loved every minute of it. But it's not just about the anecdotes, it's also about the data. Things are changing out there. So in 2022, the world's largest professional networking community, right, LinkedIn, launches this career break feature. Within a year, over 1 million people use that feature and list a career break on their profile. The next year, Wiley, which is one of the top 5 publishers and runs the world's largest reference, like global reference book series, solicits me and commissions me for taking a career break for dummies, right? When the biggest like reference book series is talking about a topic, you know that something is happening and they're seeing a trend. The next year, Bank of America launches a sabbatical program. Within the first year, they had 10,000 employees sign up to take that benefit. And now, just 2 years later, at the end of 2025, they are predicting that number will be 35,000 employees, and it includes their global head of benefits. In 2024, Gusto came out with a report that more workers are taking sabbaticals versus what we saw in 2019. And earlier this year, Harvard Business Review launched a 4-part series on the power of sabbaticals and career breaks, how they benefit your career, and how as employers, you can use these benefits to retain and help support employees and having even more better outcomes. So there's a lot of data out there that shows this is a growing movement. But why are people doing it, right? Okay, so more people are doing it, but why is this a growing movement? Why are more people taking breaks? Well, it kind of comes down to these 3 main things. So I like to call this the 3B framework. We've got burnout, we've got betrayal, and we've got blossom. And these are the primary reasons that people take breaks. So first with burnout, this is really about being beyond capacity. So you can think about it as your mental capacity, you can think about it as emotional capacity, or even physical capacity, right? So if you're struggling with a health issue, you might be beyond capacity for what you can physically do. If you've lost someone like I did, you might be at your emotional capacity for what you can do. And if you are grinding it out in a high performing job and you are trying to meet and exceed all those expectations, you'll likely have the mental burnout, right? The second one, betrayal, is really about self-betrayal. So this is when you are living a life that feels incredibly misaligned, like not where you're supposed to be, or that feels like it is really conflicting with your values, right? So if you say that you value certain things in your life, like the people you love or your health, but you're in a job and an environment that just does not allow time for you to invest in the things that you care about, you might feel this sense of self-betrayal. Or if you at one point loved your job, but you feel like you're being called to a different kind of challenge or a season of reflection, and it's like, this just suddenly doesn't feel like where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to be doing, you might feel that sense of self-betrayal. Now for blossom, this one is about not what you're stepping away from, but what you're trying to move towards. And this is really around wanting to pour into the other parts of your life, the many, many other important parts of your life that have been possibly neglected because of your sharp focus on achieving things in your career and making money, right? So we're talking about spending time with loved ones, taking care of your well-being, having fun, having leisure, having hobbies, learning new things, feeling inspired, pouring into your community, right? All the other aspects of your life that make it a really rich and rewarding experience. So the reason this is a Venn diagram is because you might find yourself feeling more than one of these things. I'm actually at the perfect intersection there because I was feeling a mix of all 3. But these are basically the reasons people come into taking a break. And through this lens, we can start to understand, well, if these are the reasons I'm taking a break and this is what's feeling wrong. Like when I move through a break, what could be feeling right? Or what are the benefits and the possible positive experiences that are waiting for me through this experience? So here are just a couple. Honestly, I could probably do a whole talk on the benefits of a break because there are many. But when you think about burnout, right, and being beyond capacity, taking your break is a chance to feel fully restored for maybe the first time in your adult life. We're talking 100% recharge on your battery. So here's what I see happens, right? We're all running in these, frantic paces, doing all the things and holding so many responsibilities. We're running with like a 15, 20% charge. And our battery is draining, draining, draining. And it gets down to that critical 3%. And we're finally like, oh, okay, I've got to find a way to charge this battery. So we put ourselves on the charger, we charge it back up, we hit 15, 20, maybe even 25%. And we're like, oh, I'm good. I've got enough. I've got what I need. I can keep going. And we unplug and we like hit the ground running, right? A break is a chance for you to sit on the charger to know what 70% feels like, what 80% feels like, what 100% charge feels like, right? It's also a chance for you to establish healthier habits and boundaries because I'll have to say, like, this is the hard thing to say. If you find yourself in a state of burnout, for sure, your environment, your circumstance is probably not supporting you in the way that you need. But it's always kind of a 50-50 thing. Like part of that is that maybe your boundaries are not as strong as they need to be, or maybe you don't even really know what your boundaries are, right? And so clearing that space and taking time to figure out what healthy boundaries and habits are and to like start establishing those without the pressures of work can be life changing, right? It can be the kind of permission you need to give yourself to not be solely defined by your level of productivity and feel like you have to be all things to all people. Like that's an inside job, right? And the break gives you a chance to really address that. Through the lens of betrayal, you have the opportunity to rediscover yourself, to reconnect to yourself, figure out who you are now, what you want out of your life, because spoiler alert, it is probably not what you wanted when you were 20 years old or 25 years old. But also to recalibrate your goals based on this new information and to set a path and chart a path forward that feels very aligned. It's also a chance to reclaim your health. If you have lingering health issues or compounding health issues, whether they're mental or physical, this is a chance for you to really dive in and create healthy habits, but also to get answers. One of my clients actually discovered that she had Lyme disease during her break. And it was only because it took a lot of seeking different types of professionals to get answers. And she never could find the time and the space to do that when she was working her really demanding job. So for Blossom, more benefits here, celebrating your life. This cannot be understated. I see a lot of high performers and high achievers always looking to the next rung in the ladder, the next sort of like milestone that they're trying to cross, to feel like when I get there, then I can celebrate. But as soon as you cross that line, there's another milestone, there's another rung ahead of you. And you never really take the time to celebrate the life that you have worked so freaking incredibly hard to create. And I find that one of the biggest benefits of a break is to really shine a spotlight on yourself, on your achievements, but also on everything that you have that is good in this moment, because life is temporary for all things, right? And so what you have today is not guaranteed tomorrow. And I really want more people to be able to sit in and witness and celebrate the magic of their lives and what you've worked so hard to create. It's also time to explore passions and interests, to discover new ones, to rediscover old ones, and to deepen relationships with people that you care about, or to build community, to make memories that are going to last you a lifetime. So there are a lot of benefits, and they're really significant benefits. And so when you're thinking about, okay, so if I just take a break, will I have these benefits? Yes, caveat, right? Yes, asterisk. You want to take an intentional break. You want to take a thoughtfully planned break if you want to realize these benefits, sort of realize them to their biggest and fullest capacity. So I'm going to give you a fun little visual on why you want to take an intentional break. So we're going to go old school back to Where's Waldo. So here's a good Where's Waldo for you, right? This is your brain on life. This is your brain on life when you're working and you're managing your personal life, admin of life, your job, your responsibilities, trying to navigate your career, like all the things, being always connected and always on, like all the things. It's chaotic. So if you're trying to find Waldo, i.e. your needs, or find clarity on who you are in the season of life and what you want next, it's not technically impossible, but it's really freaking hard, right? So you might think, okay, I just need a vacation. A vacation is good. Vacation is good. But a vacation is still going to leave you with so many things floating around in the ether, right? You've still got work lingering. So maybe you can enjoy yourself for a few days, but you're going to be checking those emails in the evening, making sure there aren't any fires that need to be put out. You're going to be thinking about work. You're going to be thinking about that project that you had to leave and you tried to wrap up, but like hoping that it doesn't blow up, or does the client need something while I'm gone, right? Like still feeling connected, still managing all of the life admin and the personal responsibilities on top of, being on this week-long vacation. Okay, so if not a vacation, then Katrina, are you saying I just quit my job and just take some time off? You could. That would be helpful, right? We're getting closer. But taking a break without a plan leaves you with a lot of drama, because you're going to worry about lots of things, like what's going to come next? Did I make a mistake? Like, how long should this break last? I didn't really plan it so much. Like, am I doing the right things? Is a better me going to emerge? Does this just magically happen? I've been on a break for 2 months. Like, why don't I feel any different? Right? There's still going to be a lot of mental chatter and chaos going on. But if you take an intentional break, which I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute, if you take an intentional break and you're really trying to hone in on what you need and create clarity to figure out what you want out of your life, how you want to design this next chapter of your life, an intentional break is totally going to help you find Waldo. It's still going to be work. Waldo is sneaky and he hides, but it's going to really sharpen your focus so that you can find your version of Waldo. And for those that just need complete closure here, there's Waldo. I am pointing him out for you just so that you don't have to leave this screen not knowing where he is. But I just want to show you the power visually of taking intentional time off and planning a break so that you can get what you need out of it. So how do you design the perfect plan? You need a personalized blueprint. So the blueprint that you see here is actually something I've created like 14 years in the making. This is based off of my own 20-month break, and it has supported every single one of those 200 breaks that I have personally seen and coached up close and personally. They've all used this break blueprint to some capacity to build a structure and set an intentional plan. So there are a fair amount of details on here, and I won't bore you with all those today, but I want to pull out the essential ones so that you know, if I want to plan an intentional break, what are like the 4 or 5 things I really need to know about what an intentional plan has to have? Because your break is going to be personalized to you, and it's going to be different than anybody else's break that I've ever seen, because you're going to need different things. So number one, there are 2 levels I want you to think at. There's the mindset stuff, because that matters so much. And it's a part that a lot of people miss when you're going into a break, to feel really prepared. And then there are the logistics, which a lot of people gravitate to, but I'm just going to point out what I think are the most key ones to focus on. So starting with mindset, we've got a purpose statement. This is essential. I would never recommend anyone taking a break without this. It is critical for so many things. A purpose statement is your why. It's a succinct sentence or 2 that explains why you're taking this break, things it does for you. It helps you feel convicted and committed when you're swirling in indecision about whether or not to take a break. Articulating your purpose is going to show you what's at risk if you don't take a break. Number 2, when you are trying to explain to people why you're taking a break, what you're going to do, having a purpose statement can make it very clear, even when the actual activities of the break still feel vague and you don't have a really specific plan. You're going to have a better time giving your notice. You're going to feel more powerful and articulate and confident when you're explaining to people and sharing your news. When you're designing this break and navigating this break, it's also going to predefine what success means to you. If you know what a successful break is, you can design for that end in mind. You can create success. Your chances of experiencing a successful break, whatever that means to you, are like 100-fold, right? You got to know what you're trying to do instead of just jumping into it and hoping that it just does something, right? The themes are secondary to this purpose statement. So I like to think of the purpose statement and themes are sort of the foundation, right? That's what you're going to build this break on. So for the themes, you want to have 3 to 4 themes or pillars for what this break is about, how you're going to achieve this purpose statement. So just as examples, if you're like, Katrina, what is a theme, right? Themes are usually like 1 or 2 words that capture an essence of something you want to focus on during your break. So think connection, right? Restoration, healing. For some of my clients, one of my clients talked about like living a joyful life. Like she wanted to experience a life full of joy. For one of my clients, right, it was a joy immersion. It was like just doing things that bring me joy. There are a million ways that themes come to life. There's no right or wrong answer here. One of mine was adventure. Another one was connection. And then there was one about my next chapter, right? Like really wanting to redesign and think about this new path in my life and what felt like alignment if what I had before felt like misalignment. So you've got your purpose statement, you've got your 3 to 4 themes. The other thing I want you to have for your mindset is a reentry period. So this is going to appear also in the logistics, but I for the mindset piece, knowing that you've set aside time and money to figure out what comes next, to get your job search materials ready, to do any upskilling that you need to do, to start networking and really like getting back into it as you're like re-entering into work again. Having this time and money set aside is such a gift to your mental state and such a gift to the like core meat of your sabbatical or your career break, because when you're sitting in your break and you're freaking out about what's going to come next and you're freaking out about, am I going to find a job? Who's going to hire me? Like I've got so much to do. You already know, oh, that's right. I have a reentry period. It's going to be 3 months long. I've got money and time set aside for it. That starts in October. I don't have to worry about this. These are specifically October problems. And that gives you more permission and more ease in enjoying your actual break while you're on it, right? So you don't feel that pressure. So transitioning from mindset to the essential things for logistics, you want to have a budget, right? It might not be a really prescriptive budget month by month or week by week of your break, but you want to know holistically, like what is my estimate for this break? Like how much do I think it will cost? My estimate was $38,000 for a 12-month break. And I became so good at spending money while not making money that I extended that 12-month break to 20 months because I had a lot of money left. But you want to have that anchor number. And if you're like me and you still need to save a little bit more to make it happen, it's a very motivating thing to have a concrete number versus just a vague, I need to save some money. But also when it comes to spending the money when you're on a break, it's really helpful. I did have a budget. A lot of my clients have a budget, but some of my clients prefer not to have too prescriptive of a budget, and they just kind of have like a monthly check-in with their numbers to see how things are going. The reentry period, logistically, it's time and it's money, right? It's setting aside however many weeks or months you want to have for reentry and making sure you have the money to cover expenses that will occur during that time. And then for the logistics of the timeline, you want to have a general understanding of how long your break could last. That helps you inform both the timing of your break, but also the finances around your break. And then a start date, right? When could I start this break? Because once you have that, the ball can start rolling and pieces can start coming together. I will say, as a side note here, don't worry about or fixate too much on the exact length of time. I have found that over 2/3 of my clients end up changing the length of time when they're on a break. So once they're on it, they change their mind about how long the break is going to be. The majority of them end up extending it a bit longer because they like it more than they thought they would, or they just realize this process to decompress and explore new things is going to take longer than 3 months, which yes, it is. So then they end up extending it, right? So like, don't worry about the timeline. It's a good anchor point to have, but you're not beholden to it for like the rest of your life. Okay. So now you've got this amazing plan. You have your blueprint, and it's going to help you take this intentional break, right? What that intentional break is going to help you do is avoid the danger zones. There are 2 big danger zones I see people fall into, especially high achievers and high performers. And I want you to know about these because I don't want you to fall into them if you're on a break now or if you're thinking about a break. So 1, doing too much. This is maybe the easiest one to fall into. I see people turn their breaks into a second job. There can be a lot of guilt, a lot of angst about doing things at a slower pace or just because you want to. And if you have somehow intertwined your productivity with your self-worth, which a lot of us have, you're going to struggle to disentangle that for a minute. And so it might feel like, great, I'm on a break. This is the time to like paint that room in my house and to go get certified in this and to go do that thing I was going to do. And some people do with travel. It's like, I'm going to travel around the world and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I'm going to go real fast and I'm going to see like 20 countries. There's nothing wrong with having an exciting, fast paced break, but oftentimes this desire to do too much, right? If you're not intentional, is really about filling the space. It's about ignoring the stillness required and the discomfort required to disentangle your self identity from work and figure out who you are separate of the things that you do. And it's also about just wanting to prove that you're not lazy or that you haven't lost your edge or to feel like you have to justify this time off. So you just end up like creating a lot of things to do, right? And so at the end of the day, if you fall off this cliff or this danger zone, you're going to end your break having some highlights for sure, but feeling really exhausted and unchanged. You're going to go back to work with the same habits and lack of boundaries or the same habits and beliefs that led you to burnout or misalignment in the first place. And you're just going to recreate another version of that, hopefully a less painful version, but still another version of that, right? And then the other danger zone is kind of the opposite, and that's not having enough structure for your break, right? So this is like, I just want some free space. I'll figure it out as I go. I totally get that. And while it makes sense on paper, right? A break should be a lot of empty space. With a lot of empty space, if you have been really focused on your career and you're used to achieving goals and just like checking things off boxes, it can feel like you're flailing when you have an expansive amount of time with no, like not a lot of responsibilities and demands of what you need to get done. And so this could look like feeling really guilty for resting. So remember that battery charge we talked about? Like when you're used to 20% and you get to 50, you're going to feel like, what is this world, right? Like I have so much energy. I feel great. I should just go do all the things now. I'm good. And like prematurely just like eject from this break, right? And go off to do some more things or try to like go back to work early. There can be a lot of guilt in that resting, and you can feel like 50% is good enough. But if you have a structure and you understand like what are the main sort of like markers of what a successful break is, and I have a purpose statement to know like, have I really fulfilled the whole scope of my break? You will really come to understand that like, oh, this guilt that I'm feeling for resting or the fact that I have a 50% charge is wonderful, and it doesn't mean that my break is over. And it doesn't mean that I now have to do a bunch of hard things so that I, like feel like I've earned this time off. You don't have to earn the right to take time off through suffering. That is just not true, right? Some of us believe that, but it's absolutely not true. So if you don't have enough structure, you might feel like you're flailing. You might feel guilty for resting. You might try to kick into overdrive or end your break, or you might just really truly lay around and just feel like at the end of the day, I have no idea what I did with those 3 months or those 6 months or those 12 months. And ending that break is going to feel kind of like a stain, right? It's going to feel a little bit embarrassing because you're not sure how to really talk about it in a way where you feel proud of it. And you're going to feel unchanged in some way. Like I'm going back to work and I kind of feel like this is like a shadow thing I don't want to talk about. And it might actually make you afraid to trust yourself to take time off in the future. Cause like once I took that break, I totally blew it. I don't even know what I got out of it other than some nice naps and a trip. Right. So I don't want you to have any of these negative experiences. I want you to have a revitalizing career break that absolutely fulfills your definition of success and makes you hit the marks that you have set for what a great break is for you. And that path forward is by having a blueprint for your break and mapping out your version of an intentional break. Okay. So it's going to help you avoid these two danger zones. So what's possible? You might be wondering, like, Katrina, what's possible if I did take this intentional break? If I did avoid these danger zones, I make a blueprint, I follow it, what is waiting for me beyond a break? I've got some success stories. I have many clients to choose from, but I tried to pick 5 really cool stories from people who've had different beyonds, right? So how they came in, what happened on their break, but especially how they left that break and what they moved towards, just to get you inspired and to start to see what's possible. Okay. So I'll do this quickly, but if you have questions about this, for sure, we can talk about it in the Q&A. Jessica, one of my favorite stories. She was a co-founder and executive director of a really successful nonprofit. She was very committed to this nonprofit. She was very invested in its success. She had a lot of guilt about stepping away. Years after being in burnout and knowing she needed a break and wanting to take a break, she met me. She hadn't been able to take a break. So we did the work, we did her blueprint, we worked through some things. She got clear on why this break was important and what she wanted to do. And she went on an adventure. So Jessica's break involved her starting an animal sanctuary, which was not on the radar, right? And deciding several months into her break that she was going to, kind of on a whim, kind of like after having talked to her twin sister, who was not on a break but had a lot of flexibility in her job, they decided to go together to the UK and do a certification for equine healing. So they heal animals, specifically horses, right, through this certification. So that is actually what she is doing today. She and her sister have recently trademarked their own sort of like flavor and brand called, I think it's called like Twinergy, but they go to farms and people's farms and sanctuaries and stuff, and they heal animals. It's like donkeys and all kinds of animals, but specifically like specialized in horses. And they do so much. It's so incredible. I watch her Facebook stories come up and just see like all of these things that she's doing, and it's really incredible. She went from one passion to a completely different passion and has brought online a whole different part of her life. Holland, kind of a different story. He was working at a Fortune 100 company. He was in senior leadership and was really feeling burnt out. He got company approved sabbatical, was planning a 3-month break, and then hired me. So we started working together. But as he was leading up to this sabbatical, where he was going to come back to this employer, he ended up receiving an offer to become the CEO of a completely different company. And he decided to say yes to that. But because he knew he needed this sabbatical, because he had a purpose statement and themes, he decided to negotiate a 2-month break between those jobs. And that is exactly what he got. And so he took these 2 months off. He poured into his blueprint and fulfilling his version of what he needed this break to be, largely restorative because he was super burnt out. And he went on to become the CEO of this company. And he will say the most valuable thing about this break is what it gave him, and that he could have never performed at the high level that job required and hit the ground running without having had this break. So Danielle is a wonderful example of people transitioning into entrepreneurship. So she had a really specialized career in natural resources and was really good at what she did. But she was burnt out and she was working in a role that she did not feel appreciated in, and she was beyond due for a break. So she ended up taking a break and then, had a really amazing experience, traveled to New Zealand, did a lot of things, but came back. And she came back thinking she was going to go back to work. But actually, she ultimately decided to set up, I believe it was an LLC at the time, to do some contract stuff while she was searching for the right job. She was being very specific and choosy about what kind of job she wanted. And she ended up filling that contract work, and it started building and building and building until she finally was like, I can't find the job I want through an employer. I'm going to create it myself. And she launched officially her own business. And after 12 months of being an entrepreneur, when I checked in with her, she said she made more money in that last year in her own business than she had ever made in her best paying role as an employee, which I think is really remarkable. So Stephen, I'll do quickly. Stephen was a slight pivot, super passionate. He's in the natural sort of like natural resources industry about saving the environment, but he was feeling like he was really misaligned with the path he was on, but very much in love with his industry. So what Stephen did that was really cool is he did a fellowship at the end of his break, a 3-month fellowship through the Aspen Institute. And it broadened his network and allowed him those connections and education to sort of pivot in the same industry and sector, but to really go into a role with a new company that was much more aligned to his talents and strengths. And so fellowships are something that mid-career people can do as well. Like there are fellowships out there, and it really allowed him to upskill and expand his network in a way that people don't often think of when they take a break. And the last one I'll end with is Juliana. And this story is, I think, maybe the most important. So a lot of times you think, maybe I'll go to something different. I don't know if I want to go back to the place that I was at before. It just didn't feel so me. It didn't feel aligned. I didn't feel great. I was burned out. Juliana was a marketing manager in a very sort of like specific industry. And she thought for sure she was going to be done. She took an amazing break. She traveled the world. She took lots of classes and things that lit her up. She started a blog with like a logo and a URL. Like, I mean, it was a real blog with these beautiful stories. She started writing a book. She was a very creative person. But in her journey, over those 15 months of being on a break, she realized at the end of the day, for this season of her life, she really wanted to go back to an employer. She wanted to use the skills that she already had to create consistent income. She wasn't ready to become a writer. She didn't really feel called to do anything, in the creative pursuits as a job. She wanted to leave that more on the side. So she started applying for jobs. Spoiler, she ended up back in the same industry at a different company in a very similar role. But here's the thing I want to end with. Her whole experience was very different because she was different. So what I want you to know is that a break can change your life. It can create new possibilities. It can put you in different places if you choose to go there. But the most powerful thing it does is it changes you, right? So your world and your circumstance don't have to change if you change on the inside, which is what happened to Juliana. And because she changed, she was able to come full circle and say, wow, I actually love my job. I love the work that I do. And it's because I have better boundaries. It's because I bring more of my full self to work every day. And she was tapped to be the president of the Women's Network less than 1 year into this new company and this new role because she was shining in a way that she never shone before. So with that said, last slide. If you're interested but skeptical, I want to boil it down to some really easy numbers for you, okay? Over the course of the average person's working life, we're talking an average of 45 years, but that's really kind of a minimum. Like high achievers are working way more than that, right? So 45 years of work. That is approximately 11,250 days of working or 90,000 hours of work in your lifetime. On average, again, your number is probably going to be higher. So what is a 6-month break going to cost you? A 6-month break is just 125 days or 1,000 hours of those 90,000 plus hours. And the question I want you to sit with is my well-being and my happiness worth 1,000 hours? That 1,000-hour investment can be poured into a break and yield dividends and benefits and advantages that play out for decades beyond your life. And so that's what I want you to know about taking breaks. So before I put the slides down, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I just wanted to throw a QR code here just in case it's easy if you have your phone. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if you like the client stories and you're curious, like what have my clients done on a break? I pulled out my 45 favorite things clients have done on these life-changing breaks and just put them into the list. And so you can download that for free with that QR code as well. And with that, I think I'm ready for questions, unless Kim, you have anything?
No, that'd be great. And also, we have Kumar who had asked a question. Kumar noticed that the career break isn't mentioned in your LinkedIn profile and is just curious about that reason.
Oh yeah. So the feature came out way after my break was back in 2013. And so the feature came out, like 10 years or so after my break. And because I talk about breaks all the time, and I have a podcast and a book and all the things, I just haven't put it on my LinkedIn profile retroactively. But if I was back in the time where it did exist, I for sure would have used it. And I've helped a lot of clients list it as well. So that's one of the things clients and people in break space do with us is they talk about like, how do I talk about my break in a way that highlights it as an asset.
Also, does anybody else have any questions or any comments? Kamara asked, how do you communicate career breaks during interviews?
Yeah. So the way I like to think about it is going back to that blueprint. If you know your purpose and you know your themes, it gives you the sort of like the architecture and language to sort of know what that break was really about. But I really suggest first, if you've taken a break, writing down a minimum 25 benefits that you have personally received from your break. It could be things like sleeping through the night for the first time in 20 years, like reconnecting with people that I hadn't seen, whatever. Like there's no right or wrong, but you have to build belief and clarity that this break was wildly beneficial for me. And then you want to connect the dots in the interview for how those benefits that were beneficial to you are going to help the company. So for example, if I use this break to fully restore, the company is going to get an employee that is ready to hit the ground running and that is super excited to contribute and ready and motivated to come in and be a part of the team and come with some fresh ideas, right? And that is so powerful in a world full of people that are burned out. So you think about all these little burned out hamsters running on the hamster wheel. You can come in and be like, I was a burned out hamster, but now I'm really excited and I'm recharged and I've got a lot of energy and excitement. And so you want to take those benefits and just think about it through the company lens. How might they benefit from me taking this break as well?
It looks like Varel has a comment. As a man, I've noticed if I say a career break for taking care of family, it's not perceived well.
So yeah, so I think it depends. Like, I could ask more questions about that one. I would say that again, going to the purpose statement themes, which I say this all the time, but it's really foundational. If you're able to articulate it in a way that feels really succinct and really clear to you, it increases your odds of having people like be supportive or at least be like, oh, okay, I get it. But that doesn't mean that everybody's going to get it, right? And people might not understand. And so I think part of it is you building your own confidence and belief that like this is what I need and want to do. But it might also be that, you know, if your break is only about caregiving, that's fine. But if your break is about more than caregiving, you're allowed to talk about the other things that your break is meant for as well, right? So I have had clients where caregiving has been a part, but personal development has been a part, pouring into themselves has been a part. And so being able to say, I'm taking a break because this would be my frame, right? Like I'm taking a break because it's really important for me in this season to invest in the people that really need me and to invest in myself. And so I'm going to be, you know, like taking care of blah, blah, blah. And I'm also going to be using this time to kind of like feel the burnout and get really excited about what I want to do next. So just like letting it be expansive if that is true for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
It looks like Gia maybe had a question. What are your thoughts about a career break once you're a senior executive?
Oh yeah. Actually, a lot of my clients are senior executives. So I will say, I think as a leader, taking a break is an amazing thing to role model for others. It's radical self-care, it's prioritization. I also think there are really amazing things that happen in that space where you can have innovative thoughts, you can upskill, you can pursue interests and passions. And so you kind of get to bring online all these parts of your brain that maybe haven't been so active because you've been like carrying the weight of the world, leading others. And when you put that down, it's like, oh my gosh, you have these sparks of inspiration. You feel your spirit come alive. And I think you are always going to contribute the best of yourself to others when you're in that state. So I would say I actually think it's critical for people that lead others or that have maybe gone a really long time without taking a break to have this experience and that perspective. When it comes to going back to work, you know, maybe in a more executive role, like if the roles for what you do are more limited, it's just a matter of really leaning on your network and knowing that you might be planting those seeds and have sort of a more phased approach to reentry where you're starting to have those light reconnection networking chats earlier or sooner to just start planting seeds. But what I find is that people in higher levels have really amazing networks and they have a plethora of expertise and experience. And so they have a really great story and they have a really great network of people that want to support them and are already thinking like, I want you for this role. I have clients that actually get poached out of breaks because people know that they're amazing and they're like, hey, I know you're on a break, but could you come out now? Like, we really have this great role I think you'd be great for.
Awesome. And it looks like Lim has some comments.
Okay.
Lim, actually, do you want to talk about them?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great presentation, Katrina. I myself have transitioned recently after 40 some years of work and in the longevity space. And I think that a lot more folks, given our timeline, our lifespans of 90 to 100 years, if you want to continue to keep working into your 70s or 80s and find purpose and have that, even if it's part-time, I think what you've said makes a lot of sense for folks like that who are in their 60s, right? Older workers who want to kind of go into something, but also want to keep it going and work for another 15, 20 years. So great presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Lim. And you're so right. I've actually been surprised. Like we've had a lot of people in their 50s joining in break space specifically. And I've been doing some consultations for my own coaching who people are in their late 50s as well. And it's that thing of can I use a break as a transition point where I still want to come back? I don't want people to think I've retired, but I want to contribute more on my terms. And maybe it's more like a part-time thing or like a freelance thing. Like I'm the person, but like I'm working and really actively stimulated. But first, I need a reset and I want to set that clear path forward. So like, actually, I see what you're saying has already come to pass in my world. And I see more people saying that. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Oriana, it looks like you have something that's a bit unique. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. I'm just thinking like if you've taken a break, mainly to deal with health issues and it's kind of personal and um yeah, and like you're kind of worried that they might think you're kind of broken or it
Yeah.
might come back and so you're not they might not want to take you on.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, like just know that you're not alone. I actually do have a fair amount of clients that primarily the health issues are what brought them into a break. So I guess one of the things I would say is while the health issue was the primary reason and the thing that you focused on, were there other things that enhanced your break experience? Were there things that you did that brought you joy? Were there interests that you got to pursue? Were there things that you learned? Were there like people that you connected with? Just thinking about your break for you holistically, was it about more than that? And it's okay if the answer is no, but like I want you to like give yourself credit for all the things that you focused on during your break. And then number two is, with HIPAA and health stuff, like there's always this like line of like how much do you share without oversharing. And I won't like without like coaching, like outside of a coaching session. In a coaching session, I could figure that out. But like with just sort of like as a blanket statement, what I would say is don't underestimate the power of you being a healthier, stronger version of yourself and coming back to work. Like, don't underestimate the value and the impact of that. Like, whoever had you last, right, was probably having a version of you that was struggling to hold it together with the health issues that you were having. And it's like, I'm still me with the network, with the expertise, with the experience, but now I'm stronger. Like, even if you haven't fully resolved everything, I'm stronger, I'm healthier, I have so much more to give. And so, one thing that is a fundamental truth is your doubts will absolutely be reflected by the people that you are speaking with and interviewing if you are really connecting to that energy. So, what I would say is like, really writing your own list of benefits. Like, how has your break benefited you in so many big and small ways so that you can have more full belief, so that you show up as like a version of you that, and I'll give you an example, I'll be a little silly, right? But you show up as a version of you that's like, oh my God, I took a break. I was really struggling, but like I am feeling so much better. I took radical self-care. And one thing I like to say is taking a break is you taking radical leadership and responsibility for your one life. Like I realized I was the one that had to fix the situation. So I removed myself from the situation. I poured into myself. I figured out what I needed. I gave it to myself in spades. And I came back stronger so that I could come back and contribute. And I, have been looking for the right company and the right opportunity. And I believe that this could be it. And I'm really excited to contribute. So it's like you reframing that story for them, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Could I add to that a little bit from my own personal experience, taking my own career break? I find that when I got very clear on the value that the career break provided to me and articulated that in a very short and concise story, I felt incredibly empowered to be able to share the clarity, the connection, and the confidence that I gained in my career break in order for me to have conversations about what I wanted to do next. Everybody loves to hear a comeback story. Everybody loves to hear clarity. And when you can articulate that in a way that shows that you felt very empowered in where you're going and in what you're doing today, whatever happened, whatever led you there, that story becomes disempowered, less of a becomes less of any kind of energy that you might be giving. It's just more so about who you are today, what you've gained, and who you are as you move forward. And that future focus does a whole lot in the conversations. And when I say a whole lot, it is beneficial to others seeing who you are today and who you can be if you're looking for a new job or if you're an entrepreneur, and the value and the work and the conversations that you're having.
I love that, Kim. You said that so well.
Sounds like Gia has something as well that was familiar. She said some coaches refer to it as an exit forward statement, 25% of the exit, 75% of the way forward. Helps the feeling of empowerment after just stating the fact up front. Yeah, good framework.
Awesome.
So just as a reminder, I have a slide up here for Sidebar, and we are so grateful for everybody who joined us today. And we are very much on the growth trajectory and growth mindset. So we value all your feedback in order to continue to improve our content in these speaker series. I ask that you take a few moments, complete the survey. The survey is also available in the link and also the QR code. Please let us know what you thought. We're here to receive it all and to continue to grow together. We've got a few more minutes. Does anybody want to ask another question or share anything that might have worked for them? All right, Katrina, any last bit of wisdom?
I just want to say, I want to thank you all for being here and taking the time to join me and have an open mind for this conversation. As you can see, I'm a really strong believer and advocate in the power of breaks. And the one thing I believe is like really helpful to people that are thinking about it or they're actually on the journey is just hearing more stories of people who've taken breaks. There's something really empowering with surrounding yourself with examples of what's possible. And so, you know, the Sabbatical Stories podcast is a really great resource for lots of stories. I have some stories as well on my website, but in general, please don't limit yourself to thinking that you are only like valuable if you are currently employed and working really hard. Breaks are so valuable, and the biggest change I see people make is when they take this time off, they realize how impactful it is for them and how much better their life is personally and then later professionally. And it changes everything. It really can change your perspective on life and allow you to live a life that feels really good and that leaves space for your well-being, which is ultimately what I want for you. So thank you guys for all coming today.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.